Cool. So why don't you take it away, Scott?
Okay, so just had one PR merged over the past week. I had a bug fix was found relating to backup deletion and the new phases, but specifically with the finalize phase. That's been merged. Still have that example plugin for backup item action and restore item action v2. And the main thing we need this for, other than obviously letting other people know how to write these plugins, is also the end-to-end test is going to rely on this. So we need to get that reviewed and merged as well. And I have started working on the end test code as well, but there's no PR yet for that one. Hope to get that out later this week.
Hey Scott, this is Daniel.
Yes.
So you will be working on the end-to-end test, not Shubham?
That's the plan right now. Shubham's kind of working on some other stuff relating to our data mover side. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. But I'll work with Shubham on that in case there's anything else he wanted to include in there.
Yeah, because we are trying to tag RC1 around the end of next week or end of this week or early next week. So do you think? So I think it will be quite challenging for end-to-end to merge before the RC, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Part of the issue is, again, we don't have the example plugin yet. I'm working on it. I don't know, whether it'll be done by then. If we get that in the time frame for RC2, is that, obviously we want the testing, done before release, so that'd be a good thing to get in. But yeah, it's not 100% clear. Just because also I haven't done a lot of work with the end-to-end test before, so I may run into some hurdles, running the test and all that. But I have started working on that already. So
just feel free to ping us on Slack if you need any help. And I would like to point out, if we merge the end-to-end test, for example, after RC2, where we are very close to the GA date, but we need to ensure all end-to-end pass so we can GA. So that
you're right. Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
bit drama. So maybe next week in the community meeting, Beijing time zone, we're gonna discuss whether we wanna, delay the end-to-end test post the GA. I think that will also work for us.
Okay, either way, I need to get it done. But like you said, merging it right before GA, only to fail the test and delay GA may not be the best way of handling it. Because, but yeah, we'll see where we are on Tuesday or next week at the meeting. Either way, at a very minimum, I should have a draft PR by then. Hopefully, done. But obviously, if we have issues with it passing, all that, we'll have to come back to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. So how about Satya? Do you want to go?
Oh, I had a quick question. Since Daniel mentioned with the GA, the RC1. So at this point, the target is end of this week for the RC.1.
Yeah, we have been running the post FC test or bug bashing for over a week now in Beijing. So in today we had a sync up, and we believed that we're gonna target the RC1 around Friday. We're gonna cut the branch.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, but if there's any change, I'll let you know.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, should I go next? This is Satya.
Sure, please.
Cool. Daniel, it looks like the screen share is disabled. Is it possible to enable screen shares?
I think that's just because Tiger should stop sharing, and then you should be able to share.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I just enabled multiple sharing, so
that might work too. I'm not sure how that works, but
okay.
I'll stop sharing my.
Awesome, I'm able to share now. Perfect. So again, just a quick intro. I know some of you weren't there in the community call where I kind of walked through what we were working on alongside Velero. Just a quick overview is, I think we're essentially looking to release a product around Velero. It's a service around Velero, which will allow customers to essentially manage Velero instances across multiple clusters in one interface. It will be delivered as a service. and a customer would be able to use an existing Velero install. If they already have Velero installed, they can still utilize the service, and we'll simply essentially catalog all of the backups, resources, all of the CRs, and effectively allow them to manage their Velero instances through our SaaS portal. And of course, they can create new resources as well. So you can do all of the CRUD operations on the various CRs through our SaaS portal. So just a quick introduction again on what we are looking to do. We're actually going to release this publicly within the next week. So by next Tuesday, the announcement would be out. And we are actually demonstrating the service at KubeCon Amsterdam. And I just wanted to kind of introduce the service to the community as well as the maintainers primarily, because I think, as I mentioned on the last call, you'll see us kind of participating actively in forums and Slack and so on going forward. So what a customer gets is essentially multi-cluster management. They'll be able to do real-time monitoring of backup and restore operations that are running in Velero through the service. And they can, again, do all the CRUD operations for the Velero CRs through the service. And we will also have, guided recovery and have some advanced capabilities even on top of Velero that we will enable for existing Velero recovery points. And that would allow us to create a cluster, not just restore to an existing cluster, right? So we're adding those pieces, and customers will have the ability to live chat with our team, as well as collect logs for all the Velero backups in one location, and this just improves the speed of what they are doing with the solution. Was there a question? Okay, if not, I'll keep moving. And sorry for the bills. I blame the marketing team on it. Again, the goal is to not really disrupt anything that they are doing. This is a SaaS. They don't have to install anything, any infrastructure element. They can continue doing what they are doing. All of the Velero scripts, all of the CI/CD pieces, all will work. The existing recovery points will continue to work. We're not adding any lock-in. There is no proprietary data we are locking customers from. If they remove the service, Velero would work just as it was working before. There is absolutely no difference other than the value add we're doing. So I think the service, we really built this to be completely compatible with Velero, and I'll walk you through. So this is a quick view of everything we capture, and we're going to allow customers to manage, and everything we will allow a customer to do through our service on top of all of the CRs and activities we manage. Any questions so far? And I can quickly do a quick demo, and I promise to not take more than 10 minutes.
So you add a lot of components in addition to Velero to support like the full stack cluster recovery, right?
Yeah, so a lot less is all relative, but I think this is our first release, so I have modest expectations on what we do on top of Velero. But what we are trying to do is essentially become open source compatible, right? Which means somebody that is using Velero should be able to get value add from our service. We're not looking to get Velero replaced, but they can take an existing recovery point that is created with Velero, so a backup that is run with Velero. We can take that particular backup and use that to spin up a cloud cluster, whether it's in EKS, AKS, or GKE. Those are the big three cloud providers we support today. But you can take any recovery point and say, hey, spin it up as a cluster for me in one of these three big three platforms. Of course, we'll try to do that with OpenShift ACM as well as Rancher as well in future. But right now we support the big three cloud providers. And
I see.
And you can, I see in Slack a lot of questions that come is around, hey, I want to take this backup and restore to another region, and I'm running into issues and so on, right? So we kind of help, speed up a lot of that. And also the key value is you have to create the cluster you're restoring to. So you can only do restores to a functional cluster today, right? And what we are essentially saying is, hey, creating a cluster is very possible in the cloud with just a few API calls. And we will spin up a cluster. We will install Velero. We will configure the BSL, and we will kick off the restore so that the time taken before you could actually perform a backup or restore is extremely low, right? So that's the extra piece we add. And we also make some of the little things like, alerting easy for people, monitoring easy for people, and they'll be able to do an ad hoc run. So you can go to any backup and say, okay, go run this backup now, instead of having to create and create a command structure, so on. I think today, just if you want to run one backup right now, you still have to provide a decent amount of information. In our case, it's really just one click on an existing backup, and we would automatically run a new backup based on that. Okay, so I'll quickly kind of show you a demo. Again, this is a GKE cluster. And you could see that I've got Velero already installed. There is no Cloud Casa element currently. And you should be able to run and see kind of Velero configurations everywhere. People let me know if you can't see my screen. You can see kind of the backups already configured on this cluster. What we are actually going to do is just add this cluster to Cloud Casa. Cloud Casa is something you can sign up for with just an email address. You don't need credit card, nothing. Just literally get in and you can sign up here. And I'm going to call it community demo. And I'm going to manage an existing Velero instance instead of creating our own agents to perform this. And I'm going to register. And when I register, it's going to give me a kubectl command to run. I copy this. I go here and I apply this. And what's going to happen here is that this particular cluster is going to get registered. It's going to initiate connection to the service. And you will see this community demo going from registered to inventorying to actually becoming active in about a minute, right? So this cluster will essentially establish a connection to the service, and it will essentially turn into an active state. So I'll wait for this to turn into an active state. It's already detected the Kubernetes version, the agent version, and it's going to begin an inventory process very quickly. While we do that, and you can also see that if there is a cluster where I said, hey, I want to manage Velero, but turns out there is no Velero installed in this cluster, it's going to warn you that, hey, there is no Velero found on this cluster. So in this case, there is Velero. It just turned active, and now you can actually see all of the backups that are defined in this, all of the restores that are defined in this. I don't think there's anything, and all of the recovery points that have been created on this cluster. Again, this was all done outside of Cloud Casa before we got into this, right? And you can also see all the job activities that are kept on that cluster. You can see all the jobs that ran and whether they've been successful or not. And you can also see the various settings as well. Our system is a little slammed. And you can see the variables and the plugins that are installed, everything from right here, right? So if someone wanted to really just go edit this backup job, it's really as simple as go run an edit and edit, and you can see, what have you selected? I've selected just the namespace. You can also define what type of backup you want to perform. Where do you want to send this backup? Is there a VSL associated? What's the schedule, retention, app hooks, and you gotta see how you've configured your backup job. And our spec is very much compatible with the Velero spec. You'll be able to essentially go through a wizard and specify, what you want to back up, right? And there is value in that because a lot of people don't know what various options mean. This is just allowing people to be able to do that. And for the advanced user, there is, again, you can edit as YAML and make those edits here directly as well. And as I mentioned, it's going to automatically pick up all of the activities. So all of your jobs that were previously run, you could see what the backup looked like, and you can actually download the logs as well. And you can see what PV details were there on the snapshot or copy. I think in this case, it was a copy job. So you can see how much data was transferred. While it's live, you're going to see some red throughput, which is really just how much is being read. Of course, once it's transferred, that's going to be the amount that actually matters in this case, right? So so far we've actually done nothing. It's just existing piece, and we've gone ahead and inventoried everything, and we just start essentially creating a dashboard of view into a Velero install. Of course, you can define a backup from scratch. You can choose the cluster you want to backup and select all of these options as well. The second piece, and also anytime there are problems, you're going to see alerts generated, and that's another key feature. If we see there is some problem with some of the things that you're performing, you're going to see some alerts generated as well. And I mentioned that we actually have some restore capability that is on top of what Velero does. So it's not just a UI for Velero when we do that. Let me see if I can quickly show you a restore, right? So here is an example. I mean, I have this is a Velero cluster and a Velero recovery point. I'm picking kind of that recovery point and saying, hey, restore all of the namespaces. And instead of just restoring to an existing cluster, which is really what I think Velero CRs do, we're actually in this case saying, hey, I want to restore it as an EKS cluster, AKS cluster, GKE cluster. In this case, it's a GKE cluster. You're going to select the cloud account to use. You can also ask for that every time this job runs, you can clean up the last instance of this cluster and create a new one. And within GKE, you can set up all of the options that are necessary for GKE, like region, what networking should I use, what cluster add-ons should I use. You can see it's a zonal or regional type cluster, which zone, what network should I use. If there are multiple, you can actually select the right VPC, and you can select any of the subnets, and what node pool, how should I size this cluster. You may want to have minimum and maximum node counts defined in this, and also various cluster add-ons. Do you want to add on these clusters when you're creating the jobs? And of course, you can select the Velero options as well. This is essentially saying what version of Velero should I install, and what BSL, how do I create a BSL, and how do I authenticate with it? And then you will see all of the options that you're very familiar with. If you want to rename a namespace, you just pick the app and say not to do, right? So doesn't take caps, so I probably will enforce anyway. You can perform everything that you do in Velero, but on top of it, we have provide all of the options that allows you to create the AKS, EKS, and GKE clusters as well. So what happens when you run it? Let me see if I can quickly show you a job that is completed. So when you run the job, you're going to see that it's creating a new AKS cluster in this particular case. It just created one. It waits for it to come online. That takes a few minutes. Once that cluster comes online, we install our agent first to perform the things that we need to perform. And then we install the Velero agent. We configure the Velero agent successfully. This is just creating the BSL automatically. And once the BSL is created, Now we're waiting for Velero to sync the contents of that VSL. And now we have everything we need to perform a Velero restore. And that's what it does at the end of the day. But this entire process is also automated for a user. Again, this is on any recovery point that was previously created with Velero. Cloudcaster need not be in the picture to get all of this value when you are doing backups. I think when you're doing restores, of course, we need to be in the picture to do all of this. And this is something that we add on top of Velero as well. Again, that I think in a nutshell captures everything. We essentially inventory what is already on Velero, and we provide an interface where they can perform a lot of things. I can basically say, just show me Velero clusters. It's going to show me these clusters. You can already see everything that's there. We today allow people to change or edit BSLs, VSLs, backups, and restores. And the recovery points and the activity and the settings are all kind of view only today. There is no changes you can make. You cannot update Velero through our interface, but that may be something we change pretty soon. But essentially become a multi-cluster Velero manager for these customers. And as you can see, there are multiple Velero clusters here that we manage them all, right here from our interface, and gives you the monitoring and alerting as well as the configuration capability on top of that. Okay, so just wanted to quickly introduce the maintainers to what we are working on. I think we are the first of its kind. There are other solutions that use Velero, but you kind of have to start with their solution at first. This isn't a solution where you're forced to use our service up front. You can actually be a Velero user today, but as you're growing, as you have 5 clusters, 6 clusters, you can essentially say, hey, I want a management portal, and that becomes the management portal for us. Okay. Any questions I can take from the team?
Yeah, I had a couple quick questions. So it sounds like, I guess from the last part of the demo with Restore, you do support cases where Cloudcast is actually installing Velero in the cluster. Do you also, but you also mentioned for existing Velero users. So are there cases where some clusters Cloudcast installed Velero and other clusters it already existed? Yeah.
So so let me answer it differently. So before we created this open source compatible service, right? Yeah. We were leveraging a fork of Velero in our agents already. So we were installing a fork of Velero. The primary difference we had, Scott, is that we perform backups on the snapshots. So unlike you have Restic and Copia running on the live system, we actually take the CSI snapshot, we mount it, and then we back up from the CSI snapshot. That's one of the primary differences. We also deliver something called agentless backups. So you don't have to actually add the cluster one by one in our product. You can essentially go to Cloud Accounts and you add your cloud account, and we will automatically ingest all of the EKS, AKS, and GKE clusters and inject our agents automatically inside, and we start backing up immediately, right? So, so we had all of these benefits, but it was effectively replacing an existing Velero install, right? And over a period of time, we just basically said, hey, we have no reason to force a user to switch out of Velero. We can essentially add a lot of value on top of Velero itself. And that's really the two differences. If you used the traditional, I mean, what we've called Cloudcaster so far for enterprises, that includes an installation of Velero. It's not the mainstream Velero. We actually use a fork. And in this case, we will just work with any Velero versions. 1.9 and 1.10 is really what we support today, but that's more a testing and certification problem than anything else. But we work with any Velero install that they've gotten, straight off of GitHub.
Right. So if the cluster already has Velero installed, you just use that. But it sounds like you also have the option to install your Velero, like when you say create a new cluster with Velero options. Now you're installing your Velero there.
Yeah, and in future, we will allow people to install a specific Velero version as well.
Right. And then also, if Velero exists in the cluster, does it matter if it's in the default Velero namespace or some custom namespace, or is that something you can detect, or the user can tell you, hey, Velero is in this namespace in this cluster?
Yeah, the answer is all of the above. So we do have a way to auto detect where Velero is installed, but you can also choose which namespace to monitor if you have multiple Velero instances.
Right.
We can only monitor one Velero install per cluster. And so if somebody with multiple Velero names installations across multiple namespaces, you do kind of have to pick one for us to monitor and manage. But we auto detect. If you want us to force to a specific namespace to manage, we will do that as well. And you can specify that right here.
Okay, and it doesn't matter what version that Velero is, other than, again, as you said, certain versions are tested and certain are not.
Exactly. So 1.9 and 1.10 is what we test, and
yeah,
haven't really gone back to an earlier version.
Right. So for example, at Red Hat, we have OADP, which is our backup product for OpenShift that includes Velero as a component. So if you had an OADP installation in a cluster, an OpenShift cluster, that would show up as an actual Velero. You know, it is an actual Velero. Again, we have a fork with some minor changes, but it's a Velero install in a namespace that could probably interface with this as well.
Yeah, it does, and we've actually verified it with the latest version of OADP. We haven't again gone back to lots of versions, but I think we have verified that with the latest OADP operator and making sure that.
Got it. Yeah, that's based on 1.9.
Yeah, those are also working in our case. I mean, if it's based on 1.9, the good thing is the next version will also be supported when you move to 1.10. And we did verify 1.9 and 1.10 works.
Yeah, and actually our next major version is going to be based on 1.11 once 1.11 comes out, in a few weeks.
But we'll stay up to date with Velero going forward, because that's going to be our job going forward.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Satya. So I think you may find dealing with different version of Velero a little tricky, because we keep adding making change. I mean, adding new attributes to the API.
Yeah, and it has been. I think we probably underestimated when we started the work, because I think the specs are different, or the options supported are very different in each version, right? So we've that has been a problem for us in terms of integration. But look, it's part of any growing community. People want options, and what we have found is the options that are supported today weren't supported in the previous one. So it's not exactly backward compatible to, have an option there, but just Velero ignore. That doesn't seem to be the case. So we've had to manage and maintain that. Raghu is on the call, and Raghu is actually the chief architect for the solution, and he could probably share how painful some of those have been, but
yeah. And again, that goes more in one direction than the other. When we add new attributes and new spec fields, for example, we've generally tried to be careful to make sure that a backup created from before, that will still be valid in the newer version, but the reverse won't be true. If you take a 1.11 backup, for example, with some of the new fields in it, that if you try to install, create that in an older cluster, it's probably not going to work for you.
Yeah, understood. Our ideal outcome would have been to ignore the settings you don't understand, but look, you can't change the past. So how it works is how we will make it work.
Yeah, I can quickly add something here, Satya. Hi, this is Raghu.
Yeah, please do.
Hi. So just a quick introduction, like Satya said, I'm the architect on Cloud Casa. My name is Raghuram Devarkonda, but everybody calls me Raghu. So anyway, so about the version compatibility, right? I would like to say that so far between 1.9 and 1.10, it's been generally good. I mean, most of the fields are same. For example, in the backup spec, right? I haven't found many differences, but I know that in the upcoming versions, a lot of changes are being talked about in the spec, and we have to really, be up to date on those. And to the point, I think somebody, Scott, I guess, about the newer versions working with the older backups, that is true. So when you define a restore, for example, from a Velero recovery point, right? So we know what is the version that people use it for the backup. So we would let users pick a version starting from that and anything in future. For example, if you have a 1.9 backup, and if you're doing a cloud restore, we can let users pick anything starting from 1.9, 1.10, that is today. And when we add 1.11, for example, they can pick any future version, and they can do the restore. So our expectation is that any version of Velero will be able to restore from older version of backup, and that we are already using that.
Yeah, I see your point, but in our test we only covered n-2. So for example, for
that's fine. Yeah, n-2 is fine. I think that that's a good point. Yeah, we will make sure n-2. It's really not reasonable to expect going back all the way, beyond that. And probably most people upgrade anyway. So do you have any idea, like the community, for example, do people still use 1.8, for example? Is there any data or any idea about that?
I guess the better question is how many people still use 1.8?
Yeah, I can give us, for example, on the OADP side, OADP 1.0 was based on Velero 1.7, and then 1.1 was based on 1.9, and then we're going to be going to 1.11. So we certainly have people currently using Velero 1.7 in the OADP 1.0 context right now. I don't actually know what point, what the official Wes could probably fill in, exactly when that goes out of support. But because we have a tendency, at least in the past, sometimes we skip a Velero version. So the n-2 may well just be, n-1 from an OADP point of view. But again,
right.
And that may be true for anyone else. I mean, I don't know what you're doing with your internal Velero, but someone who's building a product on top of Velero may not release a new version every time Velero comes out with a new version. So that,
which is true. I mean, that is true with the Velero that we embed. Yeah, we may not immediately update because we made some changes to, for example, like Satya said, some fork, right? So we made some changes to the CSA plugin, and some of these things we already created PRs for. So for that reason, yeah, 1.10 has some changes. So we're still in the process of updating 1.10 in our internal distribution. But going forward, I think this actually brings up another good point. So whatever few changes that we have made in some of these Velero forked repos, I would really want to contribute it back to Velero. So you might see some PRs coming out of Cloud Casa. And even the one big difference that Satya mentioned for the copy, right? So we do the backup from CSI snapshots mounted in a mover pod, whereas Velero is directly reading from the host mounted PVs, right? So there's a big difference there. And I do remember seeing some proposal, probably work is already going on in Velero community to do this as well, right? Do the backup from snapshot. So this is maybe one area where we can definitely work together, and we can contribute that that knowledge and even that code if required back to the community. So some of these things, yeah, you will definitely see more activity from us giving back whatever we have in our fork.
Yeah, that'll be really helpful. Thanks in advance. And by the way, I would also like to point out in future there may be a break change introduced to the API, because there are some attributes and fields we consider tag deaths. So sooner or later I think we need to clean them up. But I'll make sure that's communicated to the community, and we have enough time to prepare and review the process.
Yeah, I would imagine when we get to that point, we would probably bump the API version of the Velero CRDs as well.
Right. I'm gonna introduce some like conversion webhook. Maybe I'm not expert, but somehow we can support multiple version and convert it to the the latest version. Yeah, I'm gonna write up some issues later. I mean, in the next week, a couple of weeks, and discuss that with you guys in the 1.12 timeframe.
Sure. And just one quick point while doing this, right? I mean, we have been a backup company for a long time. And while doing this, we do notice few things in Velero. So for example, not storing all the data with the recovery point, for example, right? Once I have a backup CR, I shouldn't have to go to anything else. I mean, I may not have exact details right now, but we noticed a few things. So we will try to bring them up for community discussion in order to improve and in a good sense, right? Improve Velero, be useful for everybody else out there who's using Velero.
That would be great. And please make sure you open issues, because we do not monitor the discussion section actively, but we make sure we triage every issues open. So
will do. Will do.
Okay, I'll stop sharing, and again, thanks everyone for the time. Our goal is to be completely complementary to Velero, not look to replace. In fact, at KubeCon, we have a booth right next to Kasten, and going to tell people don't move to Kasten. We can make Velero better story, right? So, so again, I think the strength of Velero is certainly good for us as well, given that we're building the service to be completely complementary to Velero. So let us know how we can help, and we will certainly get our feet wet and start contributing. I think you see that already in Slack and forums. A lot of us are starting to respond, and we'll kick up as we get even more experience with Velero.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I guess next we go to Daniel.
Yeah, just want to share with you guys, we are planning the release of 1.12. So we don't have we didn't have a chance to discuss the timeline at the moment, because we were quite occupied testing to make sure 1.11 can go out. So but now Pradeep has been adding labels as 1.12 candidates to the issues, and in the next 1 or 2 weeks we're gonna label more of them, and we start triaging these candidates and decide the payload for 1.12. So the one anchor feature for 1.12 will be the data mover. We're gonna introduce this pluggable framework so that data like the CSS snapshot can be moved to the object store. So we're gonna make sure 1.12 we have a good end-to-end workflow for the data mover. And as for now, if you have any features you wanna work on 1.12, please make sure add the labels. If you do not have the permission, just ping us and discuss with us. We're gonna take them into consideration in the planning. Yeah, I think that's my update, and just let you guys know that we are planning 1.12 and the window is open. If there's any issues you want to be included in 1.12, make sure bring that into our radar. Thank you.
Daniel, I see the 1.12 roadmap that Pradeep created on the wiki in VMware. Do we have permission to add or edit to that wiki? And we could put our names, and nothing is in stone, right? But for discussion here, or maybe add it to the HackMD first and then.
Yeah, I think yeah, I haven't thought about this process. I think it will only be me editing this wiki, but if you want to add anything, I think first thing we want to do is add the labels to the issues you want to work on in 1.12, we want to include in 1.12, and we'll triage them internally, and we can also triage them together on the community meeting or via Slack, and later we can work on together on the draft of the wiki. You think that will work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine for $next release. I think I'll also chat with Pradeep maybe at KubeCon and see if we can get high level ideas for 1.13, 1.14, 1.15, whatever, so we can have a little high level direction of where we're driving the project to in the future. But yeah, I think that'll work okay, Daniel.
Yeah.
For 112.
Yeah, I think that will be helpful that we can, work on like a future roadmap wiki page or MD file. So
Yeah.
we have, a relatively concrete workload that we know what we're going to do in future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that's everyone. You guys have anything else you want to add to this meeting?
Actually, if folks have a few minutes, I have a very quick question about Velero upgrade. Just came across an issue before this meeting. If everyone is okay, maybe I'll just take 2 minutes. So
That's fine.
okay, so basically, like, I guess my question is around like, is there any general guideline around like how to handle like in progress or running backup jobs during like a Velero upgrade? Like, is there any like advice? Do we cancel it? Do we let it go and do its thing and let it finish?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we have a general guide. If you have an in progress backup or restore, the only way for it to succeed would be to let it finish before you did anything that would restart Velero. So an upgrade would result in, shutting down the pod. So I think if you want that backup to not have to repeat the, recreate it, then you would want it to finish.
So this
That's correct.
include okay, so this include like the data mover part, right? So I mean, you're saying like when the Velero restarts, like it would just like restart like the whole thing.
Well, I
And
mean, if the Velero pod restarts or you shut it down, whether or not there's an upgrade being involved, an in progress backup, right? Currently, the Velero backup and restore controllers are not designed to pick up an in progress backup. So just in general, even outside of upgrades, if something causes your Velero pod to bounce out of memory, whatever, any backups or restores that were in progress will not complete. Those are going to fail.
Yeah. I think that used to be a bug that will stay in progress forever, and I think in 1.9 or some
I think it was
release.
1.9.
Yeah, we just set it to the failed status. When
Okay,
Velero.
so there's nothing Velero that says like when after it bounced and came back, like it would be able to resume and know, oh yeah, this was the backup job that was.
No, it won't resume. We do have a control on restart. What we do is if there's a backup that was previously in progress, we mark it failed. Because right now the backup and restore controllers are not designed to pick up a backup that was in the middle. So if it doesn't complete, then it can't resume. So you would have to recreate a new backup or restore CR to start over.
Okay, so I guess the general guideline for users would be, either make sure there are no backups running, or be ready to expect that the backups are going to fail.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, with that, there's nothing else. I'll stop the recording. You guys have anything else? All right. Cool.